Well, here we are with the movie that will finally wrap up the 6-year-long story arc of the animated DC movies. Justice League Dark Apokolips War. And that is one hell of a title. And I must admit, I never thought we'd reach this point. I've had my doubts many, many times because I have been reviewing these movies pretty much since the beginning. And it always seems like they kept diverging a bit and, never going back to the whole apocalypse thing. But eventually they did. And granted, this movie kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't even know that this was going to be the wrap-up of the storyline until like a month before it came out. But yeah, they finally made it. So after the events of the Death of Superman movies, Superman decides that he's had enough of Darkseid and decides to take the fight to him. So he rounds up pretty much every character we've seen throughout these movies in order to go to Apokolips and take him out once and for all. Of course, some characters get a little bit more attention than others. Most notably, the movie seemed to center around Constantine. I mean, I know it's called Justice League Dark, but this wasn't exactly the follow-up to the first Justice League Dark movie that I was expecting because, well, I don't really know if they have any extended interactions in the comics. Maybe they do, but I never really expected to see John Constantine and Darkseid together. They always, to me, felt like separate parts of the DC universe, but maybe they did have some extended interactions. I don't know, but it was nice to see a lot more Constantine because I've never really known Constantine that well before, watching these movies, and I really like him, and I think at some point I'd like to read some of the comics, and I thought it was great that they made him the main focus of this movie. I guess they're trying to make up for what happened to the TV show. And I do believe some of the characters we did see were missing from this. I don't remember seeing Deadman in this. Maybe, a couple other characters here and there. But they pretty much got as many characters as they could. Some of which I didn't think we'd see again, like Shazam showed up again. Nice of him to show up after how many movies has he been missing? Superboy and Steel were a part of it. The Titans, and just a whole bunch of characters. Unfortunately, because there were so many characters, not all of them got a whole lot of focus. Some of them didn't even have voice actors. They were just kind of there and doing their thing. But I think they gave pretty much everybody a moment to shine, even though, well, let's just say some of them don't last very long. And at this point, I think we should just get right into spoilers, because there's a lot to talk about with this movie. So if you don't want anything spoiled for you, skip ahead to this time code. So the attack on Apokolips doesn't go very well, as to be expected. Darkseid was listening in when they were planning their whole attack, and he was ready for them when they showed up. And, yeah, a lot of characters got killed. I know Aquaman got, torn in half, and a bunch of other characters got really messed up. Some of them managed to get away, and I'll talk a little bit about one particular one in a minute. But Superman got captured. Darkseid injected him with liquid kryptonite, so he lost his powers. Batman somehow got converted into Darkseid's strategist and assistant, and then other characters ended up getting torn up as well, but converted into cyborgs who now serve Darkseid. So yeah, things could have gone better. So then we have a 2-year time skip where Earth is kind of in ruins right now, and Darkseid's forces, who are parademons that have been combined with Doomsday's DNA, which are really, really nasty, are kind of everywhere, and people are in hiding, and whoever survived the attack on Apokolips are kind of spread out all over the world. So then we cut to Superman, who's with Raven, and they try to go find John Constantine, who, when the attack on Apokolips happened, actually ran from the battle. And that was a pretty messed up moment because they had established a strong relationship with him and Zatanna. And there was a moment where Zatanna was getting torn to pieces by the parademons, and Constantine just bolted. And that was a strange moment for him. But even he said himself, I faced all kinds of crazy things. I don't know why I ran in that moment. Then this movie basically became Constantine's movie, and most of the focus was on him redeeming himself after what happened. And just redeeming himself in general, because it's Constantine. I should also mention they find Constantine with Etrigan, who was affected by this whole situation so much that it caused him to stop rhyming when he spoke. That's pretty bad. So he tracks down Damien, who's with the League of Assassins, and they get a hold of Lois, who is recruiting the Suicide Squad. So we haven't seen them in a while either. And I do love the moment with Lois, because the way that she got the Suicide Squad on their side was that she had to beat Harley Quinn in a boxing match. And my God, this version of Lois Lane is awesome. So with everybody assembled, they storm LexCorp to get to a transporter to get to Apokolips and take out Darkseid once and for all. And Lex Luthor was kind of unwillingly made into Darkseid's contact on Earth, but they did establish that he was also playing both sides and helping out the heroes when they needed it. There was one really cool moment on Apokolips. Right before they got to Darkseid, the heroes that were captured and brutally injured were turned into cyborg soldiers, and they attacked them. And one of them was Wonder Woman, and she was about to attack Constantine, but he broke her free because he used his magic to grab her lasso, wrap her up in it, and he goes, "You are Wonder Woman! Break free!" And that made her come to her senses and fight on their side. I really love that moment. And then there were some more really great moments, like Batman breaking free because Damian had gotten killed, which leads to what was probably one of the biggest moments in this movie. You see, throughout the whole thing, they established that Raven was struggling to keep Trigon contained, and they kept, calling back to it throughout the movie, and I kind of knew where this was going to go as soon as I saw that, and sure enough, at one point they released Trigon on Darkseid, and they have this big battle. So while it did have a pretty cool climax, you're going to see a lot of characters get killed in this movie. Some of them get gunned down, torn to pieces, and other stuff happens to them. God, poor Jon Stewart. He tried so hard. Although my favorite might be Cyborg, because while I am in the spoiler section here, I don't want to say too much about what happens, but let's just say he gets the last word. Unfortunately, Earth got messed up pretty bad, and there's nothing they can do about it, and eventually everyone's going to die anyway. So, sure enough, Flash decides to fix everything by causing another Flashpoint. The good old DC reboot button. And it does make sense because these movies started after the Flashpoint Paradox movie, and it was established in Suicide Squad Hell to Pay that movie is actually canon to this storyline, so it all works out, I suppose. This movie was pretty fantastic, and I think it's a great wrap-up to the storyline of the animated DC universe. It's not on the same scale as Avengers. There were a lot of moments that seemed to borrow from the Avengers movies, like, the time skip and all that, but I do feel like DC definitely needed this type of moment after a lot of problems they've been having. And I think the good news is you can just pick up this movie and watch it, because most of these characters are well known and you don't really have to have seen all of the movies in the story arc to, get everything. And to be honest, a lot of the movies were kind of hit or miss. I mean, mostly they were pretty good, but a lot of it just felt like filler because they established Darkseid like immediately when this whole thing started, and then we just kind of forgot about him for years. Most of the movies just seem to introduce new characters and elements, and that's about it. But this was one of those things that felt like it should have been part of a TV series instead of a movie series, because the pacing would have been a lot better. Also, my biggest problem was maybe Darkseid himself, who is not very fleshed out. And yes, I know we should all know who Darkseid is, but, compare him to, let's say, the Justice League TV show Darkseid, who was established many times throughout not just that show, but other shows like Superman. He just felt too like what I like to call generic evil, where he's just the bad guy, and even he himself said in the movie, you know, I am a conqueror. All I do is conquer, and that's about it. They really could have maybe afforded to do maybe one or two more movies that kind of had a little bit of focus on him, but otherwise, I don't really have any major complaints about this. And I guess we'll see where they go from here. Maybe they'll start up a new storyline, or maybe they'll focus on more standalone movies. I feel like, though, a lot of the major story arcs, a lot of the more famous story arcs from the comics, have been adapted. I know there's still some out there, but it seems like all the major ones have been covered. And I know there's going to be a Superman movie coming out next, and as far as I know, it's going to be a standalone Superman movie, or maybe it'll kick off something else. Who knows? I feel like maybe doing standalone movies will be best for them, but if they want to, you know, try up a new storyline, I'm all for it. I guess we'll just have to wait and see where DC goes from here, but for now, that's all I got for Justice League Dark Apokolips War, and I guess that's all I got for the animated DC movieverse, so leave a comment below and let me know what you thought of this movie and the animated DC universe as a whole. My name is Rob, and have a wonderful day.